Thank you, everybody. We're about to start our first panel. We have two incredible guests. One, Vanita Gupta, who was the head of the DOJ Civil Rights Division under President Obama, and Meena Harris, who's also a lawyer and an entrepreneur, and the founder of the Phenomenal Woman Action Campaign. Thank you so much, Meena and Vanita, for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you and to hear about the state of our civil rights in 2020 and the upcoming election.
Vanita, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Meena. How are you? It's great to see you.
Yes, you too. I have to start by saying that normally I would, dress up for this event and for you, but I just got my Vote for Auntie hoodie in the mail last night, so I had to wear it today. So I'm a little casual.
That is so great, and you're going to have to get me one.
Yes, I absolutely will send you one. We all need this sweatshirt. It's very cozy and awesome. And I should mention, designed by South Asian creatives, and it's just awesome, all the amazing stuff that we're seeing come out of this historic campaign. First, I just want to say I'm so excited to talk to you today. I have looked up to you ever since I was a baby lawyer in DC, and when you were leading the Civil Rights Division at DOJ. And I know that at this event today, we have so many young people, I think young lawyers, folks who are in law school. So I want to start by, talking about your journey. I know that so many other folks look up to you, and you have dedicated your life to fighting for civil rights. You now, of course, are the head of the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. And I just want to, know about your journey and what inspired you to pursue this career and to dedicate your life to this work.
Well, first of all, it is so great to see you, and I'm so grateful to Impact Summit for putting on this conversation. We are at a really pivotal moment in our country, and my personal story, I don't have a kind of one thing that just changed the course of my life. Like all of us, I think there's a series of different things that happened. I remember very vividly. It's a story I talk about, but it's when I was 4 years old and my family had just moved to England. And it was a time where there was a rise of the skinhead movement in Britain in the late 70s. And we just picked up my grandmother from Heathrow Airport, first time coming out of India. And we stopped at a McDonald's to get a little lunch. And we were sitting, and at the table next to us were four skinheads who started throwing French fries at us and yelling at us to go home. Bakis, which is a derogatory word used against South Asians in Britain. And I just remember being absolutely mortified. And we quickly gathered our things up. I was embarrassed for us. I was embarrassed for my grandmother. It wasn't really until later that I realized that I was also probably a little angry. And we scuttled out of the McDonald's. And I remember throughout kind of growing up, just always being aware of my surroundings, wondering, do I belong? Do other people belong? And it gave me a kind of unique perspective on being a minority in Britain, and then coming to the United States again. And I was a very political college student. My sister is lesbian. She came out in college, and my whole family went through that journey. And I'm so proud of my parents who have been such exemplars of growth and learning. And they instilled in me some really core values, Meena, that I know you talk about. I am so blessed to have parents who brought me to this country who believe in being engaged. And I know that they have two uppity daughters, but they have expressed such pride, and they believe very much in the kind of project that is America and the role that all of us should be playing in making sure we're not sitting on the sidelines expecting other people to do this work, but that we have a real role to play in making sure that this country is inclusive, that we can fight for justice, that we can see ourselves in our leaders, which is why it's so exciting to have Senator Harris as the VP nominee. So these are aspects of my story, and I've been really blessed. I've had a career where I've been able to do exactly what I want, which is to fight for justice and equality. And it hasn't always been easy, but I've always woken up knowing what my mission is. And that in and of itself has been really gratifying.
Wow. Well, thank you for all of your leadership. Truly, you have done so much for our community, for lots of communities. And I know that it is hard, tireless work. So thank you for all you do every single day to fight for so many of us. And I just appreciate you sharing that personal story. Listening to it, I have to say that, I'm thinking, wow, that sounds like, one might think that was like a long time ago, which it was, except that we are hearing stories like that right now. And the point is that we have leadership or a lack of leadership instead, that is inciting violence, is, emboldening racists to do exactly what happened to you, to other folks, especially from the Asian American community that we are seeing coming out of this pandemic. And I think it really drives home what we are fighting for in this very moment, right? And the fundamental rights that are at stake. And just, I'm scared personally of what 4 more years of this could look like, right? In terms of what we're seeing and what people are experiencing. So I think, that leads me to perhaps a more hopeful, conversation around the fact that nevertheless, we are having a real, I think, reckoning right now. We're having, a genuine, recognition and real demand for racial justice, racial equality, police reform, police accountability. And I want to talk about that from the perspective of the South Asian community. I've had a lot of interesting conversations with friends who are having, frankly, difficult conversations with family members, starting with the BLM protests. And I want to acknowledge that our community, just as many others, suffers from anti-Black racism. And it's something that I think we all have to acknowledge and work through in this moment. And so I'd love to hear how you're thinking about that in the context of the South Asian community. And also, how do we have conversations, whether it's with our families or, neighbors or others, to really affect lasting change and not allow this just to be a moment, but for it to have real change for the future.
Yeah, and look, I want to thank you for your leadership on these issues too. I can't color how dark this moment, the last several years have been. It's not to say that we've ever been perfect as a nation. Even in the Obama administration, there were things that I wish we could have done, and we weren't perfect either. But I cannot tell you just how, what a moment and a precipice we're on right now at this moment for the future of our country. The last several years have seen a systematic dismantling of civil rights, attacks on immigrants, and not just, kind of the attacks that you see in policies, but the separation of families, some of the most inhumane policies, racist policies, Charlottesville, and then the constant denial and refusal to denounce white supremacists. And we're seeing it play out in policy after policy over and over again. And it has been really painful. It's been painful for our communities. It's been painful for people who have been fighting for and really standing on the shoulders of giants who came before us, like Congressman John Lewis, who passed the reason why South Asians were ultimately allowed into this country and the immigration laws passed was really as a result of a culmination of Black organizing in the civil rights movement that then saw, the 1965 Immigration Act open up our borders to South Asian immigrants. My parents were a beneficiary of that when they arrived in the United States in the late 60s. And so I say all of this because we literally have a decision to make in this election about whether we will be a democracy. I really do, or whether we won't. And but what we saw this summer after George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, I think was also really inspiring. It's been as I said, a really tough several years to be a civil rights advocate, to be somebody who cares about the health and future and soul of our country. But this summer, when I was out at protests, and I know Senator Harris was too in Washington, these protests were multiracial, they were multi-generational. You had Latinos and South Asians, Asian Americans, Native Americans, people of all stripes and walks of life proclaiming Black Lives Matter, and really in a way that removed it from just being a hashtag, who were horrified at watching that 8-minute and 48-second video of Derek Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's neck, looking at the cameras with total impunity, and also recognizing how our fates are so intertwined in this country, that we are never going to be able to truly have equality in this country until we recognize and see ourselves so intertwined in each other's history. And so this fight for this, all of this, and for justice remains very alive and well. Over the summer, the Leadership Conference worked with Senators Booker and Harris and other really kind of righteous leaders on crafting the Justice and Policing Act. I was honored to testify in both the House and the Senate. In the House, next to Philonise Floyd, who had just the day before put his brother to rest in Houston. It was such a powerful, it was like an 8-hour hearing. It was really long, but we were talking about what we need to do in this country and really talking in concrete terms, Meena, about policy changes. We need a national use of force standard. We need to end the militarization of our police forces. We need to ensure that that we don't have officers who can just get away with violating the law, and we've got more accountability. Justice Department needs more authority to prosecute police misconduct. So this is all work that's alive and well, and the Movement for Black Lives has shown us the path around the country. And this needs to be sustained. I think this is going to be an effort. The bill, unfortunately, it passed the House and did not pass the Senate. It ended up with the other 450 plus bills that are in Mitch McConnell's graveyard. And so we are going to keep this fight alive. We are inspired by the activism around the country. I think it's really amazing that more and more Americans are talking and thinking about structural racism, but also wanting to find real solutions to it. And that's why I think this is such a pivotal moment in our country right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. Listening, I mean, thank you also for the history lesson. I think it's a very important one that we all need to remind ourselves of. I want to ask you, and it's something I think that is a challenging question, and one that I've been getting often, which is, I mean, you are an expert, right? I mean, you're just running through the history and the legislation and, where things are in terms of policy, what that vision looks like going forward. But how do, ordinary folks who are maybe not lawyers, they are not policy experts, they are not in this every single day, living and breathing it, like you and me, how do they talk to their families about this? We know that our people love to debate. We love to, to talk about politics, right? Yeah. But how do we, I had folks recently ask me, how do you talk to your Indian parents who are supporting Trump, right? Because they see a connection with Trump and Modi. And I think my first response was, have those difficult conversations. There's never been a more urgent time than now, and understand that you may not sort of win or, convert your, family before the election, but this is an important conversation for our community for the long term. But what would you say to sort of ordinary people who are trying to have those conversations and to feel like it's productive and it's going to, be helpful for the election?
Yeah, I think this is it is a really hard thing to do. And yet I'm with you, Meena, where I just feel like the stakes are so high for the next generation. My kids are really worried about this election. They're 9 and 12, and they, it's not that I proselytize them. They're watching the news, they're hearing things, they're talking to their friends. And they're worried literally about what is going to happen to people who look like them with brown skin. My kids are biracial. I have a Vietnamese American husband. And they are afraid that immigrants aren't going to be welcome in this country anymore, that the pathways that were made for my parents to come here and the opportunities, it took civil rights laws, it took civil rights enforcement to open up doors for people. And I just think that this is a moment to have those conversations. They are hard. I'm not going to say that they're not. But I do think that in this moment, really being clear about what is at stake for our communities is important. And to think about the long term. This is, I think there's also a lot of, misnomers and misunderstandings about Trump's support for India. And there's been some really good materials out there about this. But to me right now, given what's at stake for this country, for democracy, for immigrant communities, for our kids, and what place they will have in this country, it is so incredibly important in this moment to have these hard conversations and to confront. I will say, it's not just, maybe I should say, even in the summer, I was talking to Indian families, and Meena, probably you were too, about the need to talk about anti-Black racism in our community, about homophobia in our community. And these are conversations that are never comfortable, and yet this is how change happens. And in moments where we are having a national conversation, we have to not just speak outwardly to, and be protesting in the streets, but sometimes it's looking inwardly at our own families and communities. In the end, my hope is that everyone will vote. It is really important, kind of regardless really of where you come out, that we don't take this right to vote for granted. It's a right that people have literally died for, to expand, to make sure that people who look like you and me can actually vote. Women can vote, people of color can vote. And so my hope also is that all of you that are watching right now understand the importance of voting, making a plan to vote amid this pandemic, which has really upended things. And go to vote.org if you don't know what the rules are, and try to vote as early as you can to relieve pressure off of elected officials. In a lot of places, I think today now, close to 9 million people have already voted in this country, and we're seeing a surge of enthusiasm to express people's votes around the country. And it's really exciting in that way.
Absolutely. I could talk to you all day. I think we are getting cut off.
Okay.
I want to just take 1 minute to end with, which is that we know, as you said over and over again, there's so much at stake. We also know that we are up against election interference, voter intimidation, voter suppression. Can you just leave us with one last word with, what people should be doing in terms of early voting, how to protect their vote? And thank you for already mentioning iwillvote.com, but let's just give one last word on what is at stake and how we can make sure our votes count.
So this is a crucial time right now, and the best way to inoculate against everyone's fears about what's going to happen in this election, there are a lot of us working to do everything we can, lots of lawyers, lots of smart folks working to protect a free and fair election. The most important tool that we have to fight back and protect this election is for each and every one of us to vote. Its high voter turnout is going to be the greatest way to inoculate our democracy against authoritarian threats, against anyone trying to steal the election. We cannot fall for disinformation about legitimate and safe and secure voting methods. Mail-in voting is absolutely secure. It's been used in places like Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, Utah for years and years without any concern. So vote, make a plan to vote, do everything you can, get yourself educated at vote.org, iwillvote.com, wherever you need to go to get your resources, and make sure you exercise this hard-fought right that is going to protect our democracy.
Thank you. And yes, you mentioned this already. We need a decisive victory. Vote early. Just get it done. Don't wait till the last minute. Vanita, thank you so much. I'm so happy to get to share today with you and with this community. Thank you to Neil and Impact. This is like the South Asian prom, and it's sad that I can't see you all in person, but I'm thankful for technology that we're still able to do this. So thank you so much, everyone, and all your hard work.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Meena.